are live here, and I'm glad that you all are tuning in. I was a little late coming on. Hi, Sharita, I'm here, but we want the audience to tune in. So I'm gonna give you a minute or two for people to come in. I want you to share it, because we have some good information on today. We have on the panel today, we have Elaine Watkins right here. We have Mark, we have Sam, and we have Torres. We are so glad that they came out today to share with us and talk about what is going on in our nation today and what we can do to help to try to put forth change in the system and what is going on in America. Because America is here, and we are here as a group of people that want to make something happen for our nation. You know, I had on Thursday, I had my family at the table. We was discussing some things, but today I wanted to bring some people that could have another point of view as to what's going on in the nation and what we can contribute to make things different. You know, we know that society views us as, you know, the way they want to see us, but we want them to see us as to who we are, the people we are, because there's no difference. There's no difference because of the color of our skin. We all are the same people, and we want to share today some information with you. We want to share today some views. We want to share some views from my sister here. This is my sister, yes. Her name is Elaine. And we want to share some things with my son, Torres. These are his friends. I'm so glad he invited them to come and share with us on today. We have a little audience out there. They spread it out. We are social distancing, but right here, we got to sit together so you all can see us, but we still have it spread out in here, the audience that we have. We have a group of young people that are sitting here and just want to share and hear something and ask some questions. But we want you to tune in, you know, share it with your friends, share it with your family. We just want to share it today and help our community, help our world, help our America understand how we feel and what we are here concerning, you know, America, and then why we're going to talk. I got to put my glasses on so I can see a little bit right here. Okay, I already told you all good evening. I shared with you all the names of my guests that are sitting here. So right now I'm going to ask the first question I want to ask from the panel right here. I want to ask this question. What can we do to make America a better country? What can we do as people to make America a better country? I want to ask Mark first, and then I'm going to ask Torres to give me an answer too on that.
Yeah, I just want to say it's great to be here with you, Miss Tammy. It's an awesome opportunity. It's been great being here, and I'm looking forward to this panel and some great discussion tonight. But as far as the first question, what can we do to make America a better country? I think, you know, empathizing is first and foremost. I think understanding each other. I think there's a problem today, whether it's between ethnicities, between political parties, that there's just an absolute refusal to understand and empathize with one another. Especially in the situation we have now. I mean, you have a lot of people who are still refusing that there is a problem. No matter how you swing it, there is an issue. And it is centered around a particular race, a particular ethnicity. And I think it's very common in our country for us to just turn the other cheek. And even if we know there's a problem, sometimes we don't even want to address it. You know, you have the people who don't want to address the problem, and then you have the people that they may know deep down there's a problem, but it's just kind of like the Good Samaritan. He was the only one to stop, but you have the other people that just didn't have time. I mean, they saw the guy on the side of the road bleeding, beaten, but they just didn't have time. And you know, you have people even in the faith community. They know again there's a problem with African Americans in this country as far as what they're facing. That differs from what someone from my demographic would have to face on a day-to-day basis. It's just, there's no time to empathize. There's no time to understand what can I do to help. And so I think, yeah, what can we do to make this country better? Just understand that there is issues going on and understand understand that we can do tangible things
Yeah.
to help, to hear each other out, because you can't help if you ignore that there's a problem in the first place. I think this is great what we're doing right now, because I mean, how can you really put your best foot forward and address an issue before you actually sit down and acknowledge again that there is an issue? And so, just empathizing, just hearing people out, acknowledging things that maybe for a long time you refused to acknowledge. I mean, I know for me, for a long time, even when I started ministry, I didn't really acknowledge when it came to racial relations and things that an African American may have to go through on a daily basis. Opposed to what I would have to go through. I didn't really acknowledge that. I mean, it wasn't that it wasn't a prejudice. It wasn't anything like that. I just didn't really view racial relations as something I had to really fan into, much less from a spiritual sense. And I think the Holy Spirit's convicted me, in the last few years to open my eyes to it, because I think for a long time I was like those people that just walked down the road and I saw that my brother or sister was laying bloody, but I just didn't really have time. And maybe sometimes I even kidded myself and told myself it wasn't as bad as it really was. And maybe maybe it's not what they put it out to be. But anyway, that's my take on that.
I kind of wanted to feedback on what Mark was saying. When I really had the time to sit down and think about issues. I was telling a few of my friends on Facebook in the comment section. I was telling a few of my friends in the comment section on Facebook that some people don't really realize the shape that some people are in. Like when we go about our daily lives, sometimes we have to put ourselves in a bubble or like a tunnel so we kind of get what we need to get done for the day, come home, relax, sleep, repeat the process over and over again. And it's just like you're gonna encounter people that don't look like you. So you're gonna have to pop the bubble, or they're gonna do it for you with issues that are gonna prick your heart, or you're gonna think about, or you're gonna go like, I wonder. So somebody made a post about them not understanding why people were rioting and stuff and destroying things, and I was like, I guess they kind of felt like it was too political, and I think my response was, people usually say something is too political when they don't want to come outside of their bubble and deal with other people's issues in addition to their own, because you have to communicate with people. When you're at work, you have to understand that there's certain things you can't say, there's certain things you can't do, because it might make somebody uncomfortable. You may not understand what those are, but it's beautiful that Mark, from what he was saying, he's learning and embracing and trying to understand and trying to relate, and that really I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Because somebody really wants to see what's going on and really understand what's better.
Gonna let the young people talk, right? Sam, okay.
Well, I mean, first off, yeah, I think that's spot on. There's definitely a large aspect where a lot of people need to start understanding why other people are upset, or so angry, or living these lives that they do. And then also, I mean, that stems from trying to gain the perspective of the people around you. Put yourselves in their shoes. And of course, that's an incredibly hard thing to do while we're so caught up in ourselves. And that takes an incredibly strong person not only to recognize that they aren't seeing the other person's aspect, but then also even stronger to be able to say, I will see the other person's aspect, because of the other person's life, another person's experience. And further, it takes a big level of introspection to then say, what am I doing wrong? And I feel like that's the problem that I see with so many of my brothers and sisters, is that so many people, if you see something and you say, and you immediately get defensive, and you say, oh, well, not me, or you say, oh, well, that can't be true, and you immediately hurt, something stings, then maybe you're on the right path. Maybe you're learning that you're doing something wrong. Maybe some part of you is sick. Maybe some part of you needs to be eradicated. And if you see that thing and it says, oh, well, this is something that's wrong in society, it's something that you're doing, then it takes a good amount of strength, and it takes the amount of strength that we need to have to be able to say, okay, let me fix that.
What I want to say, I want to give young people first. In order to make America better, I believe this is something that we gotta work on now that the door is open. Now that everything as per se, everything is out in the opening. We start right here working on it, fixing it, and making it better. I remember the first time my son came in contact with prejudice, because I never taught him that this person is different, you're different, you're that. We had just got back from Europe, and anybody know anything about the Europeans, you know how they look. And so our family there were Europeans. So when he got back, he was used to being with just everybody. Yeah. I carried him to Burger King to eat. We went to Burger King to eat lunch that day. And I remember he was outside playing on the little thing that's outside the kids, playing the bubbles with the balls. And it was a little girl out there with her mother and her auntie, and she kept standing there, and my son kept playing. He said, "Come on, play with me, play with me." You know, they was playing. She says, "I can't go on there until the N word get off." And she said it loud. This was a 4-year-old child. And my son was about 4 or 5. So my son turned and he looked at me, he said, "Mom," he said, "What did she call me?" And I said, "That's okay, baby." I said, "Let's go." And her auntie looked at the mother and said, "I told you not to do that," because children learn from their parents. Children learn from their parents. See, and this is something we gotta go back. Your generation have to go back and make the difference. We gotta go back. You all, you all heard about the struggle of the day. But now we see that what they said is really, it exists. But it don't exist in you all. It don't exist in your generation. So you are the one that have to make that change. And you gotta be determined to make that change. If it's gonna get better, we can't stop. They can't just walk and march for 4 or 5 days or 7 days and it's over. Right. Go back home and go back to your everyday living. This is something that has to continue to take place until the change happens.
And then, even with the marching, we gotta be able to march with peace.
That's true.
We need to march without tearing up different things. We need to march in peace to make a difference. And I know, we know the history, how Martin Luther King, he marched and the people marched, and that was that century. We're into a new century right now. And these generation of young people, even the young people sitting around us, they don't think like we did. They want change. Across the racial line, they want change. They want to see everybody pulled together. But some of us older people are still stuck in the past. And we want to hold on to that stuff that we had control and how we got things governed. These people nowadays, the young people nowadays, they're not having it. Y'all ain't having it. Y'all want change. Y'all want to see all of us be able to walk down the street without somebody else crossing the street to get on the other side or grab a hold of their pocketbook saying, "Oh, I think you're going to take something from me." These young people nowadays won't change. And I'm glad to see that we all are seeking for change. Okay, the next thing I want to say, where do you think the change starts? Do the change start from the top down? Do it start in the middle? Or do change start at the bottom? Where do change start? Where do you think it would start? If I may ask my husband first, Anthony Stewart, come up and share with us where you think change should start. Should it start at the top, the middle, or the bottom? How are we going to get this thing to change? Because what it is something that is rooted. It is rooted in and when something takes root, a plant takes root, it's gonna be solid as it grows. So how we gonna get the change to start? And I know it's gotta be some political things causing the change, but where we start?
So I think that the first thing we have to do, and I'm going to say this part as an introduction quickly, is education. However, now that we've heard that, then there has to be action. I think Mark and Sam both mentioned a little bit of some action. You know, we can all, on the news they talk about education. We got to educate our people. Okay, we've been educating for God knows how long. Okay, we've had to come to some realizations, which I really appreciate the guests here because they're bringing a different perspective, and they're expressing some realities of what they had to go through, and you know, they both brought out something very important that I was listening to, where a lot of times, and this particular topic may be race relations in America. However, when you're doing anything that you're not aware of, it's not necessarily something that you're against. You're just not thinking about it.
Right.
So once you've been made aware of it, then you can begin to affect a change. So education is there. We all know what we're supposed to be doing. So we got that. Now are we going to take action? And unfortunately, that's the hard part. Why? Because there has to be some sacrifices made. And it's going to be uncomfortable. And we're going to go outside of our comfort zone to get that done. And, you know, like I said last week, I probably upset both sides of the racial coin because I just like to put it where it is. The great start is the realization of these two gentlemen brought it out, and I really commend them for that. They didn't have to do that today. That's the first part. However, we as a people have to begin to bring ourselves together so that we are able to move forward when these changes come. So let's just pose an example, and I'll step back out. Let's just say tomorrow, and this is hypothetical, let's just say tomorrow, everyone that's not of color all of a sudden has a heart change, and everybody's fine. Now we have to play catch up. Because now we're thinking, I still don't trust him. He's not going to do me right. This is the skin I live in every day. Now it's a problem for us. So we have got to get ourselves together. We've got to not loot and destroy. We've got to come together, sit down, have a conversation and say, listen, what do we need to do to enforce the change within ourselves so that when the rest of America catches up, we're already there?
And I would say, I think it's definitely a root problem. You know, you look at the Central Park 5 in that situation. I mean, what had to take place in a culture to come to a spot where 5 innocent young African American males were incarcerated for something they didn't do? It's because the government that did that was brought up in a culture that was absolutely prejudiced. And yeah, I was talking to someone the other day, and I said, racism doesn't always wear a white clan bill. Sometimes it wears a bow tie and goes to cotillion. That's right. And just because you're not burning the cross or using a racial slur, I'm not necessarily you're a racist, but you can still have prejudice again and not know it. And so just because it's not all out in front, you're not putting everything out there, and you're not doing the things that a standard, quote unquote, racist would do, you may still be contributing to the problem. And a kind of big part of that problem is the root of it. It's how you're brought up. It's how you're brought up. Are you empathizing? Talking about the Confederate flag, it might be innocent to you, but it might not be so great for you to wear around, your African American brother or sister. Just because, and it works both ways. We have to be, empathetic with each other. And and if there's no sensitivity, when it comes to the root of it, how you're brought up, how you're raising your children.
Right.
Because no one pops out of their mother.
No, you have to
Soul
be
of
taught
their
as a
head.
learned behavior.
You can look at my daughter. She goes up to every single human being that she can. She doesn't know. She doesn't know a stranger, and that can sustain. It's not like you get to a point and they just start becoming prejudiced, just like they start walking or something. They hear it. just like they hear a dirty word, you know. But yeah, I think absolutely it starts with home, and I think a lot of systematic oppression, again, like with the Central Park Five, with all these, you know, murders, you know, they are crafted from the root problem of, you know, a negative upbringing, you know, when it comes to, you know, being aware of these things.
Right, and like what you just said.
Oh, okay, well, I want to vote on some of that. Short answer, I feel, honestly, like a lot of the change when it comes to the base is already taking place. Like, people are already starting to change their mind. Now, whether or not, that's a huge part right there. But then we have to take on the system. We have to take on the systemic racism. Okay, you need to change law. You need to change equity problems. You need to change how minorities face harder problems with banking, with jobs, with discrimination across the board. And that's the quick answer. But the honest truth is that racism lies in all white people. And then immediately all white people listening will say no. Because they don't realize that the tiny tendencies inside of us. See, racism isn't always action. It's not always something that you do. It's not always something that you say. It's oftentimes what you think. It's while you're driving down the road and you have this thought that enters your head out the back of it. Something that you have of a relic of living a life as a privileged white person, having benefited from the system your entire life. Some of these things grow subconsciously, and then also some of these things you make more concrete because you learn to support them out of anger, hate, bad emotions. That if you're in a system where you get angry, you look for something to support that anger, something to vent that anger out on. And more often than not, it's to support those tendencies. Those bad thoughts that we have, and see that's complicated. I mean, and learning how to, because one, you have to recognize it, which takes a great amount of introspection, and then two, you have to try to get rid of it. And that's just that's further than a sickness. That's integrated to a part of white people. That's a part of who they are. The racism is integrated into who they are, into who we are. Whether or not we know it, whether or not we recognize it, there's still thoughts, there's still tendencies which affect our actions, whether directly or indirectly. And see, fixing that, I would love to be able to say that there's some sort of magic to that, but there's not. I guess the thing that we would look through, and I guess education is something that everyone throws around, but it's not something that can, you gotta teach your kids. You gotta raise your kids, and your kids have to raise their kids. I don't want to say that anyone is a lost cause. No one's a lost cause. Okay, but that type of work is lifelong. It's lifelong to fix that situation.
As you were saying that about your child don't see color now. Your child will run up and talk to anyone. I look at my granddaughter. She do that too, and I'm reshaping her and reteaching her. So that, I feel like prejudice or anything, when an innocent child comes into this world, they are taught to do that. You tell them things. Whatever I tell my granddaughter, because she be trying to say grandmama, but she can't say grandmama real good. And I keep telling her, grandma. And I'll tell her, go pick that brush up and bring it to me. Go pick the brush up, take it to your mother. I'm giving her instructions. She's learning. So it's a learned behavior. It's not something that you're going into this world to do. It's a learned behavior. So we need to teach our children different. And I can see now, even in this room and people that I be around a lot of these young people nowadays don't see that. They don't try to be that way. So I take it that when their parents came along, their parents weren't teaching them that because they learned the history of it. And they saw the history of it, so they were saying, well, we're not going to teach our children this stuff. And these young people nowadays just aren't going to do it. They're going to teach your children to love everybody, and that's how it should be. So I like that question right there. I like what you said. You teach the child. Teach your children not to be that way. And when we're taking up different things in school, I know in my psychology class, they were saying something that what you are taught, your environment, how you are raised, that becomes a part of who you are. So that's the root.
Now, I'm also thinking that right with you, the change starts with everybody in this room. And with those out there. If we really want to change it, and as you said, Tammy, this is something that has to be practiced over and over again.
Yes.
Because the root is so deep, and you know, if we're gonna change it, it starts at the bottom. I'm just gonna tell you, the change is not gonna start at the top. We all already know that. Cause everything come from the top really don't make no sense. So, it's just not gonna happen, not at the top. So if we're gonna change it, this has to be the generation that says, we're not gonna take it anymore. We're not gonna take it. I thank God for those that is taking a stand. I'm praying for them. I wish things could have been done better, but we're dealing with a whole new generation of people. They don't know order. These are not, this the microwave age. They don't know order, they don't know anything about Dr. Martin Luther King, they don't really know anything about the history of the past. So this is just how they do it. To them, it is order. It is order. Let's hurt those that's been hurting them. So that's why they're tearing the buildings up, they're tearing things down. But it starts where they don't understand. If you really want to make a change, it starts right here. If you all say, this generation is not going to take it. People are people. All color people are people. And eventually, everybody else will. All those old heads that's very prejudiced, they're going to die. They're getting old. They're getting old. But you can't allow that seed to just stay inside of you and to fester in you, and you take it from generation to generation. Let's change it. The change starts in the moment.
Okay, what are some of you all that's sitting out here at the table, what are some of you all's concern about what's going on now? What are your biggest concerns? What are some of you all's fears? Do you feel like what's happening right now that we're seeing on the news, that it's gonna get bigger, it's gonna get worse? Is it gonna change?
My fear is going into like as in now, just going out shopping or eating. Because now since the government technically opened the city back up, people assume, we're just gonna live normal, but let alone they don't know that the corona is still out there.
Right.
And they, since like all this protesting, they look at that now instead of they just forgot about the corona.
Yeah.
And that's my biggest fear, as in, I understand the protest, but y'all don't care about the COVID-19.
Right.
So
Yeah,
that's
it's
my
a big distraction that has happened to get us off course of what we was already going through. And then they're coming out in big crowds, yes.
I guess one of my biggest concerns right now is the relabeling of the demonstrations and of this rising movement as only rioting. Only looting.
Yes, yes.
The relabeling of all of this, only seeing the looting. This is what gets all of the media
Attention.
That's true.
That's just an effort of trying in some sort of way of making these demonstrators, these protesters out to be criminals.
Right.
Flip the narrative on them.
That's right.
No, they aren't the murderer. They're the murderers.
Right.
They're not those who are discriminated against. They're the discriminators. They're the ones who are ruining these businesses. With that narrative, which in fact, actually, now as more information is coming out, there's far left activists and there's far right activists who are going in going in and instigating these type of activities.
Yes. That's right.
So of course, instantly there's danger in relabeling that, but then also there's long-term implications.
Right.
Yes,
And that's the thing that I had noticed too, how they shifting it and relabeling everything and forgetting the purpose of that's why.
Stick with the
And
purpose.
it was peaceful, and then, like you said, I saw different ones coming in too, and I saw them doing different things too on the news, but that was not getting noticed. It was just that we ain't doing it the right way, but they forgot the narrative.
The reason for the
Yeah.
I love that.
I'm going to piggyback over what my aunt said about this generation. We're saying we're not having it anymore, and it's like a lot of riots and looting. You can look at how the household, when a parent tell a child no, in this generation, and maybe a little bit more, they start having a tantrum. tantruming, you know, and we have to put them in line, you know, and sometimes the parents let them react to it, let them have that tantrum, and so that's what's going on now. It's not like we don't know order, we know order, but we're not listening to it, and we're having a tantrum by blowing up stuff and doing all this kind of stuff like that, because otherwise you won't hear me. You know, when they cry and they fall out, you hear them and you give it to them. So now they're going out there having a tantrum. Maybe they're heroes now, since, you know, like other back then. You know, I like the peaceful marching. I'm not condoning any looting, but it sounds like I'm not condoning it, but it sounds like it's working just a little bit, because now it's like it's getting everybody's attention. So we're looking at it. So once they look at us, we can say, you know what, this is what we're gonna do, and we'll stop doing that. We'll do this and we'll stop doing that. You know, it's wrong, but you know, it might be getting, like I said, it might be listening, it might get out, you know, all the media is looking towards all of that, and they're asking them, what's wrong, why y'all doing this? And they said, we're tired of it, we're tired of getting killed, I can't walk down the street. So, you know, get them on TV.
You know, when we call for you for help, when you come with your gun, kill us. No, we're calling you to come help us, not come hurt us or kill us. You know, and then if I'm doing something wrong, you ain't got, like you said with the children, if my granddaughter doing something wrong, I'm not gonna beat her because she's doing it wrong. I'm not gonna tie her down because I'm gonna find out what happened or what caused her to do that. You know, but quickly to be judged when something is done wrong. And the children, like I said, everybody's crying out. We're crying out for help. And this is the way you need to hear the cry.
One thing that I noticed
it was funny. I was looking at a document the other night, and this was in 96. I don't know if I can say the person, but he was they were interviewing him, and he said the exact same thing. He was like, after years of going through the same thing of being denied your rights and what you want done, people want done, they're gonna react. Said that years they asking for peace, they asking for justice, they asking for understanding, they asking for patience. And then he said, but it's gonna be a time when they're gonna just blow up. They're gonna stop asking. That's what he said. They're gonna stop asking and they're gonna start taking.
Right.
And it's because you never gave me what I kept asking you for, but now I'm starting taking it. And then I'm gonna look like the bad person, but I've been asking you for years. Right. He said it's been over 20, 30 years we've been asking, but now they're taking. And that's their reaction to what's going on.
Right. The reaction.
Yeah.
Cause and effect.
I would say one of my concerns is, like, I understand, and I don't want to be like, well, you a punk because you just want everything so peaceful. But some people have to realize peaceful things sometimes can get across. I just don't want nobody to burn down their communities and stuff. But you have to realize we gonna need those stores again. We're gonna need all of the resources that they feel are there that they're tearing down. A lot of places that they have went to in the past, some of the places never got rebuilt again. Some of them cities never got rebuilt again. And they have to realize that, you know, don't tear down your own community and think that, you know, they ain't gonna be mad when we don't have nowhere to shop at, we don't have nowhere to go and do certain stuff, you know.
Well, I have a question. How do we know that it's the people in the community doing what's getting done?
That's true.
How do we know it's them?
Yeah,
So
that could become,
I don't believe it's them. I agree with Sam. I believe it's just people that came in to distract and to take away the purpose of the reason why they was out there.
That's right.
And want to make it look like, okay, now they looting, now they doing this, and now they are, now they,
This is how they are.
And they're focusing on a particular color. And saying that this is what they're doing. You see, in other words, really what they were saying, see what happened when you really let them go. And when you give them their freedom, do you see what really happened? And so this is to shine a light on us, to make it look like there they go again. But this is why we have to keep it peaceful, no matter what's going on around us. We gotta keep it peaceful, and we gotta keep it sound and safe. And if somebody is burning up, I saw a police car where it's a group of young people caught it on fire and burned it up. Stay away from that area. You know what your purpose is, but we have a tendency of running to stuff. and want to see what's going on instead of going in the opposite direction.
Right.
You don't have to always know who started or what's going on, you know your purpose.
Right.
Stick with the game, stay where you are.
Right. Stick with the peaceful walk and the things we're trying to accomplish while we see if we're gonna get change in America. Yes, I saw that, Ivory had a question.
I didn't have a question.
You have something you wanna say?
Well, I was gonna make a comment, about my biggest fear. My biggest fear is that everything that's being done now, the protesting, people marching and people speaking out, social media, is all gonna be in vain. You know, I'm afraid that there will be no conviction, and I'm afraid that someone else that has killed another unarmed black person, regardless of the situation,
Right.
is, you know, gonna get off.
Right.
You know, and because of his
That's
title
true.
and who he is,
Right.
you know, I feel like the system is just rigged that way.
Mhm.
And, you know, there does need to be change there. Everybody always says there needs to be some, you know, reform
Right.
in the system, but that's my biggest fear, that, you know, this family is gonna have to, just like other families, you know, be left with the burden of, you know, their justice not being served for their loved ones.
Right. And then it just be another picture added on the wall.
Yeah.
Of the people that have been murdered in that way. It's another face. And then after this, somebody else, then again, somebody else. So we're trying to make sure that it never get to that somebody else, because I have 3 sons of my own. And I do not want to bury my sons before I'm buried. I'd rather they bury me. I don't want to see them, you know, in the street like that, and then they have to play it over and over on the news, and that's a repeat of me being hurt all over again and again and again. No one knows a loss like that except a mother that has gone through that. And then that's most of our fears as a mother in this nation. You fear for your son. Yes, I fear for my daughter too, because daughters are dying too. But I really fear for my sons, because when they go in and out of the house, I be wondering what time they're getting back. Is they gonna make it home? Or give me a call, text me, you know? But I don't wanna live under that. I want to be able to be free, that my children can go out and enjoy themselves and enjoy this world that God placed us in, not man. That God placed us in. And we all wanna be able to experience that freedom and to be who we are,
Yes.
and to be admired as who
Yes.
you are,
Yes.
and not be dictated as who you are, or dominated about who you are. So I'm just glad that we have an audience, and I thank you all for the viewers that are viewing today. I know the young people in here, maybe you all might have another question or have a comment. Okay, my brother Jester.
I do have a comment. I was sitting there thinking that in order to make the change, we got to stop complaining and going out doing what they're doing. They protesting is good, but you ain't voting. It ain't no good.
Right, gotta vote.
You want to make a change, get the people out the office.
Right.
Go to the polls and get them out of office.
Right.
That's the only way we're going to make a change. We get somebody in that got a heart.
Right.
'Cause right now we got people that don't have hearts in office. Ain't no change going to happen.
That's right.
But when you get out and go into the voting poll, and you go in and make some numbers change there, and get the people out the seat, and get some people with hearts in there that will know how to find that one, put that one in jail, and do things that is doing stuff now, we'll make a change that way. They work hard to get us to vote, but nobody want to go vote.
Right.
They talking about all the changes. That's the only way we're gonna make a change out of anything. If we want to move the top, we got to go vote to get the top change.
And we got to get more people in office that see our views.
Yes.
And feel our pain. And
Correct.
then when we get people that are getting ready to be elected, we can't have 4 or 5 people running for that same office.
Right.
Because that would split the vote.
Yes.
You know, if we can get behind just one person that, okay, we're gonna push this one, we're gonna vote for that one, then another one comes, we're gonna push this one. But if you got 4 or 5 people running for the same chair, you're running for the same seat, are running for the same committee, that splits the vote. So we as a people got to come together and say, okay, come on, who we gonna vote in, who we gonna vote in, who we gonna ask to do this, and stand together behind that person for change. Cause we do need change.
Yes.
And we got to not be afraid of change. We have to vote and get behind people that believe in us.
Yes.
And that believe in the change, because change is coming.
Mm-hmm.
It's gonna come with or without our permission. It's gonna happen. Whether you like it or not, it's gonna happen. Change is gonna happen. I do believe that. You have something you wanna say?
I do. One of my biggest concerns as a mother of 4 sons is that as a parent, as a mother, you teach your children to have high self-esteem. You teach them to love themselves and to love one another. But one of my biggest concerns is that they go out into society and society does not love them. Society looks at their skin color as a crime. And so how do I, as a mother, combat that? I'm trying to teach my child love and charity and to give and to have a heart and compassion for people, to be loving, kind, and compassionate. But they go out into the streets and they get the exact opposite, and they have to be fearful of themselves. They have to be fearful to walk in the streets because they are afraid that because of the way I look, somebody's going to mistreat me, someone's going to be unkind and unjust to me. So that is my concern. And then I have a 21-year-old son who is very agitated because of everything that's going on. And as a parent, he actually went to Atlanta to the protest a couple of days ago, and I was nervous. I was a nervous wreck because he's like, Mama, your generation, the generations before us, you all prayed about it, you all sang about it, but you all did not do any action. He said, my generation is going to act. And there's this quote that I've seen that says, we are not our ancestors. So this generation, they believe in acting and doing whatever it takes by any means necessary. You know, we pushed the Dr. King philosophy. However, this generation is thinking about, we need to go to a Malcolm X philosophy or some other philosophy because it's not working. And so as a mother, it concerns me because, again, I've taught my children to love and to be compassionate, but they're saying, Mama, that is not working. And so what do you do? And so I've tried to teach my children that there are things that we can do strategically, and I think that is one of my biggest concerns with the protesting. Yes, protesting is great. They need to know that we're agitated. They need to know that enough is enough, but there needs to be a strategy behind it. And so without a strategy, it's like chaos. And chaos is only going to lead to more confusion. So my thought process is that we need to sit down and we need to rally together and come up with a strategy, with a plan of how we're going to legislate these people out of office. How do we change the training manuals so that police officers are trained how to have a heart, number one, and how do we vet these officers before they're even given a job to see what their history is. They've had a history of being mean and unkind and unjust to people, because it seems like there's a trend, and it seems to be a popular trend that is okay because of their job title. But we need to train them, number one, of how to treat people. We need to make sure we're hiring people that have a heart for people. We need to make sure that, as we said before, that we get people in office that have a heart and compassion for people, not just after money. Even if we think about the Bible, in the Bible, God had generals that were not in ministry, but they were in the marketplace. So even as Christians, we have a job to do to make sure that we are training our young people, training people to not just come to church and want a title in church, but you've got to get your gifts and use them in the marketplace, use them in legislature, you got to use them in the community so that we can have a Christian impact in the community. In the church, we're not doing enough. We've got to teach people, okay, no, we're not worried about these titles in the church. We've got enough apostles, we've got enough elders, we've got enough bishops. We need elders and we need people who are going to be generals in the community and in position to have power and impact what is happening with our community. And so we've got to change. The other thing that we've got to do is we've got to be wise where we spend our money. African Americans are the consumers. They say that in every other community, $1 lasts 7 hours, 12 hours, 3 days, 4 days. In the black community, it might even last, it doesn't even last an hour. But we have the power, because if you think back to the way that Dr. King operated, they hit them in their pockets. They stopped riding the buses. They stopped, going to their business. We've got the power to make change, but we don't have the discipline to make change.
All right.
We've got to have the say, I'm not going to spend my money in the locations if you're not going to support our causes. I'm not going to spend my money if you're not going to give charitable donations towards some of our nonprofits and the things that are doing good in our community. I'm not going to come to your hair stores. I'm not going to do anything that is not going to benefit my community. I am going to support African American owned businesses. We have the power to make the change, but we don't have the discipline.
On building on that, I think it's important to also educate yourself on how your vote is being discarded. Voting rights is one of those paramount issues that, especially in Georgia, where in 2018, Stacey Abrams won.
Right.
In 2018, Stacey Abrams had thousands of votes discarded. Not to mention the active voter suppression of over 1 million votes in Georgia have been discarded through exact match laws and through voting purges.
Right.
So it's very important to understand how your vote can be discarded. It's screwed up. Okay,
Yeah, right.
It's very important that needs to change.
That's right.
To change it, you need to be aware of how it can be discarded. Be active against that, and then also keep that registration registered.
Right.
In Georgia, they get rid of your registration over 2 years if you don't vote.
That's right.
Okay, that's criminal.
it.
That's criminal. Okay,
So
voting
that's
is one of
something we
those
can
things you should
legislate.
have a lifelong connection.
Yeah.
Okay, if you're registered at 18, the rest of your life you should be registered. But in Georgia, 2 years. If you don't vote every 2 years, your registration is purged. Okay, so keep that up. So I don't want to be in some sort of position like I'm not some wizard. I'm not some monk, and I don't want to be barking. I'm not barking orders in any way. And I don't want it to be taken that way. But I think that knowledge is beneficial. And these issues affect minorities far more than they affect me. Okay, far more. The majority of the votes that were purged were African American. It's systematic. It's easily recognizable. I'm sorry, y'all.
This is why we're saying get the education. Go to school, get the positions. I like what Arizona was saying. Get the position, become a senator, become a doctor, become a lawyer, become a judge. We need Christian people in those areas, even the president, because you already know it can be done.
Yes.
Am I right? So push your education as well, not just salvation. We don't want a bunch of saved folk, but you would not benefit. And then the thing about it, when God allows you to get in those positions, open the door for somebody else. Make the way for somebody else. Don't get up there and then you lose it. Because we have people in position that can speak up and make a difference. But they're not willing because of what they have to, because of what they have to face and for what. And they feel like they're alone and they're not going to back me up. But they don't know what would happen if they were to just take a stand.
And
Take that stand.
then too, they get in those offices and the money starts smiling at them. And then they don't get done what needs to be done for the community and for the people. Yes.
Two things. First thing is, as I was sitting here and voting, we need to see if I see a lot of churches opening the doors for the coronavirus testing. We should see if we get the doors open up. Same thing as for voting,
Right.
where it could be come to the church and you can vote, and we know where it's going. We know that it's going in there because we have firsthand seeing it going in there. And the second part is, like the people that's already in power, that's African American, that has a heart, they might be afraid of the people at the top. But you got to think about it. Martin Luther King wasn't, and the people back then, they wasn't afraid to go into those places and sit down and get ketchup on them. They wasn't afraid to go to jail. They wasn't afraid to lose anything. So we got to get like that. You know, you could be afraid to lose it, but guess what? You have your power. Your voice has been heard, and somebody come behind you to change that and put you back into position, or you got them to have the position. Because they did that for us, and now we can sit and eat anywhere we can or whatever. We can eat and walk around and communicate with each other because of what they sacrificed.
Right.
So you be the sacrifice, and your grandchildren, your children, they'll bless you because now you put them in position to have power and to be able to bless you back and say thank you.
Right.
Yes.
Wanted to say something?
One thing I wanted to say was that, I guess it's gonna be a little farther back, but, when it comes down to like how they perceive us on like the riots and like, what's going on in the streets, it's like I'm afraid that, the media is gonna repeat the process, which Albert was talking about, how, we're gonna be seen as like the bad guys, and then like after a few weeks, the market's gonna die down, everything's gonna die down, and it's gonna go back to normal. All those buildings, like AutoZone, and those actual companies or those franchises that have money invested into it, all they need is insurance, and the building goes right back up in a few months. So I mean, it makes me wonder, like, the people that I know that don't look like me, that I'm friends with, the thing I was afraid of is that like, would I have to die in order for them to understand how serious this is? Like, they don't understand when they look at the screen, all they see is, okay, there's a whole bunch of people riding and they're brown skin. But to be honest, there's a lot of white people on there too. But there was quite a few on there. But like, for them to see that on there and just assume, okay, people are just riding, people are just looting, and like you were saying about labels, they're just gonna start throwing labels on it now because of what people are deciding to do in the midst of people who are peacefully protesting. People got upset, people used their own personal reasons to kind of like vent what they were feeling. So I'm just afraid that I would have to lose my life in order for people who I'm personally connected with on Facebook to understand. Torres is the nicest person I ever known in my life. Like, and he died and got killed by a police officer. And like, we watched the video, we saw this happen. Like, or even if we didn't see it, like, you can't convince me Torres did something crazy or something that warranted you to like murder him or take his life. So
I will say, I'm coming from a community, that is, like, my church is predominantly white, and most of my interactions are with other white people. Our youth ministry, a couple of my students here, is pretty balanced as far as that. But I will say, I have seen a change in tone from people that I would have never expected as far as their viewpoints on this. I mean, you're talking about individuals who would paint Kaepernick a few years ago to be this terrible person for peacefully protesting, mind you.
Yes.
Because at first it was peaceful wasn't bad, and now it's too malicious. So it's like, not to get on a tangent about that, but it's very hypocritical. But people who painted him in this negative light, who from a few days ago, like, maybe this guy was on something. Maybe we gave him too part of the time. Maybe we didn't really stop to understand that this guy was, trying to peacefully make a point and not be anti-America. So anyway, I feel like what I'm trying to say is that there is a large demographic from the white community who are, opening their eyes to things in a way that they've never had before. It's really been amazing because, again, these are people who I thought could never empathize, could never just sit down for a second and just weigh this thing out and say, okay, what's going on? But they're on social media and put it out there like, look, maybe this wasn't what we thought. Maybe we need to, singing a tune that I would never think they would be as far as social injustice. So I will say that from what I see, and we're still a long way from where we need to get, I think there is some positive, progression.
If they don't charge the murderer, if they do not charge the men that stood there and watched the other officers, how do we go back to the normal?
Well, I don't think there's gonna be normal after that. I really don't think it's gonna be no normalcy after that, because I think that it's gonna ever be normal again. Just like this corona came around, and this corona made everything not be normal anymore. This came just like that. It's not gonna be normal again. People gonna try to get back to normalcy, but I don't think it's ever gonna get back like that, if that happens. So hopefully, something good will come out of this, that there will be some results and some consequences behind this, because we need to see that happen. And my brother is here today. He's gonna read something to us that maybe not too many of us in the United States know why it always turns out like it do. And they don't know, we don't know why the officers get off like they do. So he's gonna read something right now that is in writing, and he'll explain it to you. Here he is.
Okay, my name is Don Watkins. You brought up a good point about them possibly getting off. What a lot of people don't understand, and you need to read it and take the time to research, you will see that the law is basically written in favor of the police officers. And the problem that I have with that, because we're talking about all of this, which is great, but if we don't level that to where the officer basically is always viewed as right, and the reason why, because of a case that happened in 1985, then a second case happened in 1989, the Supreme Court had to define what is objective reasonableness. And they based it off of the fact that when you judge a police officer action, you cannot basically judge it off of hindsight or 20/20 vision. At 20/20 vision, hindsight 20/20. You can't base it off of that when you are determining whether they go to a grand jury first. Like Minnesota, they don't have a grand jury. The person that's in charge right now, back in 2018, I think it was, I was reading, he changed that, did away with the grand jury. A lot of the people, especially African Americans, they applauded that. Because the problem was when they go to a grand jury, most cases, dealing with policemen for taking a life or any felony has to go to a grand jury in most states. Some states did away with that. They was one of them, because what they was finding out that a lot of times the grand jury, 9 times out of 10, they hand down an indictment, which means they can move forward with the case. But the problem was a lot of times there was a lot of African Americans that were getting the indictment to proceed forward. And if you look at history, it's very rare you will find a police officer getting convicted or even getting indicted. The case happened last year, 2019. Minnesota finally had an indictment on a police officer. Yeah, it was a black officer that shot a white lady that called. She was in the alley, she heard about some noise, she didn't know what's going on, she called. When they got there, the officer was on the passenger side, the other officer was driving. She came to the driver's side and knocked on the window. Passenger side, the officer on the passenger side didn't know who she was, and he just kind of reached over the car and started shooting, shot and killed her. Don't use, videos. We got videos, we see what he did. We notice how long he did. But, that's hindsight. But what was he thinking at the time? And he based it off of what a reasonable officer would do. That's the number one thing. What would a reasonable officer do in that same situation? Well, you had, and none of them tapped him on the shoulder and said, well, that's too much. So right now, that makes it hard right there, because you got 3 other officers that didn't step in. I don't know if they told out to one, I don't know that. But I'm just saying, that's what they think of what a reasonable officer could do. This is all the kind of information that even before they present a case, they have to go and collect evidence, they got to talk to the officers, they have to talk to witnesses before they even get it. That's why he said he don't know. He's still trying to get up to the officers, a charge on them. The only charge he could get on this one police officer was a 3rd degree murder charge. it's not enough, but it's hard to prove the case because when it's all said and done, we got to try to figure out what he was thinking at the time. Was this guy resisting? Was somebody else like that they see?
And that's the thing, we need to get changed.
You were stretching.
I'm
We need to
stretching.
get that changed.
So, if I understand you right, what you're saying is, if basically all the police on the police force agree that that was reasonable, those people are gonna walk. That's basically how that bill is written.
Murder is
How
murder.
that feels?
I just wanted to clarify that while we were online.
Wow.
But they look at it from a cop's standpoint.
That's why.
He's always, his life is always on the line. A situation can go from 0 to 100 in about a second. And if it does, he's gotta make a decision. Do I live to tell the story? Or, and the reason I'm saying, listen, I'm not trying to take the side, I'm trying to educate you. Because I did 23 years in the military. I train people on deadly force, when deadly force is used, justification of deadly force.
That's right.
I also taught the non-lethal weapons movement. There was other movements that he could have done to get him to comply. You got pressure points, you can hit, trust me, you're gonna comply. But with a person down, handcuffed, two other officers holding him down, he was already, he was not resisting. You would think it would be an open and shut case. But it's not. That's why it took him that many days. The prosecutor that many days just trying to come up with something that he know that if I take him to court, chances are he's going to be convicted. And guess what he did? He pretty much brought up the same charges that he did the officer that got convicted last year. Because he knows at least these charges stuck. Third degree, and what, second degree manslaughter or something like that?
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought we were talking about.
Yeah.
So the guy last year he didn't get convicted.
He got convicted for 12 and a half years.
See, I don't know that case, okay, see, I must have.
I'm not talking Missouri.
In regard of this case, he's being charged with third degree murder. That's what I was meaning when I said that is not enough, because that's not enough.
That's right.
Because I mean,
It's not enough.
I understand that the cops have to make that split second decision, but as far as I'm concerned, murder is murder.
Right.
Okay? And then further, here's another thing. In those split second decisions, you know what shows up more than anything? Your training. Okay? And your biases and your preconceptions. The parts of you, the unconscious parts of you that will act in that split second. Okay? And those are the racist parts. That's the worst parts of these officers. That's the part that needs to be screened. Not only that, but also the training is oriented entirely wrong. This training is almost as if you're anticipating, you're looking for conduct, you're looking for aggression, you're looking for assault. And I mean,
And that's
just my thing.
I look at it, that's not right. And I'm not here to defend, I'm just trying to tell you that that's how they embrace themselves. That's how they get.
Well, I forgot who said it, but they made the point of, maybe the escalation, even though maybe it shouldn't have gone to what it did, maybe it would serve a point into, people on the jury thinking, I mean, if this does go the negative way, what could transpire? Like what we saw in the last few days was like apocalyptic almost, like what's gonna happen if this one gets Wall Street gets a less jury charge.
Don't base it off of what's gonna happen. If you say that, you gotta base it off of what was that cop thinking at the time. That's why it's gonna limit you. That's why a lot of jurors come back with a no conviction. Because they already know what they gotta do. It's not right. That's what you gotta fix.
But what can we do to fix that? People need to, that are listening, you need to go look that up and read on it and do some research so we can see how we can change this. How we can change
We can come up with a law.
Yeah,
We
we
can come up with a bill.
need another bill passed or something to change this because they would never get accountability for what they do.
That's true. Yeah.
But if I were to go out there and shoot somebody and kill them, that's a different story. Or maybe I'm defending myself, and they got to prove that I defend myself. So
The main question they had, even in this case, when he woke up that morning, that cop, was it on his mind that I'm gonna go and kill George Floyd? No.
It may not
That's
have
what they
been
said.
on his mind to kill George Floyd. He just got caught up in the mix. but it could have been on his mind that I'm gonna grab somebody.
Oh, yeah.
And the first one, because that's the way it seemed to me now.
But how can
It
you
seemed-
tell that?
Because it
That's
kept, the reason I say that is because if you have already apprehended somebody, you got them in handcuffs. But you, and see, I watch my son, I watch others that do karate, and I was married to a military man that knew the pressure points and all of that.
Yeah.
The way he kept grinding in this man's neck, and everybody kept telling him he couldn't breathe, and he kept saying he couldn't breathe. If he would have just let up a little bit, it would have showed me that I'm not trying to kill this man, I'm just trying to hold him. But then he had his hand in his pocket.
Right.
Yes.
Like, you know, it was, yeah, it was his posture, the way he was, like, okay, I got this, I don't care, and I'm gonna make an example out of him to show the rest of you. And so that was to me to put fear in us. And I can't say just the men because they come after black women. And when I saw those officers knock this grandmother, 90-year-old grandmother over, trying to protect her grandson, who was already in the position that had his hands up, and they knocked her down, but just so happened grandma said, if I fall, I'm falling on my grandlady. I said, now grandma did what I would do. And we going down together. So, I'm sorry, I'm a preacher. Go ahead. I'm a preacher.
But this has to be changed.
Yes.
Right. We gotta change this law because
We gotta change it.
it's not gonna stop at this one. To hear how there is no accountability and you can't tell what they was thinking at the time. So this gonna happen again and again and again. And one thing, and another thing too, and another thing too, we gotta make sure and seek and make sure that there's more people of color on the police force. Cause everyone that I see mostly that are going through those things and someone laying there, what color are they? So, and then too, like I heard, we were discussing yesterday, certain things they can't do against one another either. So, what's the use even there? We gotta change that law. That law has to be changed.
Even if we can't change the law, what we can do is introduce a bill or something saying, hey, this particular maneuver, grabbing a person around the neck to subdue them, is against the law or is punishable by such and such, such and such. Anytime you cut someone breathing on. It need to be put in their training curriculum. Here are the things you can do. If you put your knee, hand, anything here around a person's neck to stop their breathing, that's an automatic termination from the force, and it's going to be punishable by such and such, such and such. We got to put something in writing. There's nothing in writing.
I think something also is we've referenced this. This officer has to be held accountable.
Yeah.
This is going to be an example, not purely for the sake of making an example, but making sure that this example is followed through. You know, for instance, this same officer, he might have woke up today, or not today, but the other day, and said, you know what, I want to kill someone. Because 16 years ago, he killed another man. Sorry, 14. Another minority, all right? Another unarmed Native American. And he was let back on the force.
Yeah.
That's part of the problem is the amount of difficulty that it has with convicting these police officers.
Yep.
Wow.
And I'm agreeing with getting the bill passed because I heard what my uncle said about how he was training other people, until they split decision. Now, the African American cop who shot the white lady, he did a split decision by shooting her because he didn't know who she was. That guy had a chance to let off and say, you know what, he's calm, he's that, but he stayed there. So it looked worse because you stayed there. Now, if you would have got there and you broke his neck, then that's a split decision. I had to get him out, But you staying there is like you maliciously staying there. Or if you would have shot him because you thought he was outraged, which I would have, not saying it, but I would have took that as a split decision more than you sitting there choking him. So you attempt to stay there on purpose. It wasn't a split decision. It was a decision, let me stay here. If he can't breathe, I'm still going to sit here. I don't care what they say.
I guess one thing that everybody in this room can do immediately or soon is call your congressman Make sure that your congressman, make sure that your senator knows that you're upset. Make sure your senator knows and your congressman knows that that your reelection is stringent. This getting done. That new laws being passed and new training policies, making it more difficult to become, to this level of police officer. And then also make it harder for these police officers to have the clearance and to be able to carry these guns that they do. To be able to get into the situations that they are, Well, I don't want to get too far because I'm not an expert on that. But that's just what I'm.
Okay, I was on.
I was gonna piggyback off of what Sam said earlier about making an example out of this officer. One of the reasons why it is so difficult for these officers to get convicted, another reason is that there's a law term called stare decisis, where if there's a precedent set by another similar case, then the courts are going to use that previous case to determine this particular case. So they say, well, the precedent is this happened before and this is what we did in that case. They pretty much just do the exact same thing they did in the previous case. And so that's why we've got to shake the system up, because if this continues to be the precedent, then that means that they'll never get convicted. They'll never be held accountable for what they're doing. So that's why we've got to do something now, because if this continues to be the precedent, this will continue to be the history that we see written for our black boys.
I think, and also in changing the legislature, which is important, it should also be important how we define what determines manslaughter of whichever degree, or murder of whichever degree. Because I think on the news I saw the other day was somebody was explaining what the third degree of murder entailed, and it was something along the lines of while he was doing what he was doing, having his knee on him, he was not conscious of the fact that he might have been endangering someone's life. In the sense of manslaughter in the third degree was what I was doing was kind of dangerous and it might have cost somebody's life, but not necessarily that might not have been the case and that might not have been what was going to happen. But it just so happened that somebody did die with the action that I was doing because it was dangerous. So that is what defined the third degree of murder, and that's why he got charged with that. So defining what lawyers use as terms in which they convict somebody also needs to be changed too. Because if that's the definition they use every time, like you said, when the precedent is set, then they're going to reuse that same definition. So degrees of murder that are more intense or more or would warrant more years in jail need to be defined for those cases or redefined.
I thank you all for coming today and joining me for tuning in, and I see a lot of questions on here that we will answer later. I see a lot of response on here. I want to thank Sharita for tuning in. I see Robin Jackson. I thank you for tuning in. Alvin Jefferson, and let's see who else. There's a lot of people on here that I can't call out all your names, but I will give you a shout out afterwards. And I thank you for tuning in today to listen to the Tammy Talk. We are trying to do something in the community, something even on Facebook, just to help the people out there, to let you know that there are people here that care. And there are people here that are thinking about you, and we all want change. We all want to live in a better world, because this is a beautiful country, but it can be even more beautiful when we become one. We become as one, loving one another, treating each other as you are an individual, treating each other as though we love everybody, because you're supposed to love everybody, but everybody don't. But we want a better world.